33-story hotel and condo project.
I'd probably be
Okay,
like
like
that.
stop, tap.
This is a plan by the community for the community.
This one here, show me.
No problem, Ken. Thanks for having me.
It's Kent Mulgat for Kelowna Now.
This is Kent Mulgat with Kelowna Now, joined by His Worship Mayor Colin Basran. Since last we spoke, the province had a budget.
They did.
Part of that budget included a speculation tax, which I take it the city does not approve of, and this is an action item for the city.
Well, let's just tell you it's at the top of the list in terms of priorities that City Council and City staff are working on. It came as a really big surprise. So we had no idea this was going to be proposed in the provincial budget, and so surprised at the lack of consultation because up until that point, I have to say I give kudos to the provincial government because they had been engaging the city of Kelowna and a lot of other municipalities on top priorities, and housing is one of them. So there really was a lot of dialogue. And then to be hit with this proposed speculation tax in the budget kind of caught everybody off guard because there was no sense that, or any indication that this was coming our way.
So, off the bat, explain how it would work from what we understand. Obviously, there would be some fine tuning, but
Sure.
What are we hearing is
So
proposed?
in short, it's called a speculation tax, but it's really not, in the sense that it is essentially a vacant home tax. And it's targeting people who maybe aren't putting their homes into a rental pool, or people who aren't living in their homes full time, which on the surface sounds like, hey, doesn't sound so bad, because we know we have low to middle income earners who are being squeezed out of our community because the cost of housing continues to rise. But when you really start to peel back the layers, the more and more evident it becomes that this is actually going to be very detrimental potentially to our community and have a number of unintended consequences, which will really have a negative impact on our city, particularly the economy. And what I mean by that, and these are just a few examples. I mean, there's a lot, and we're still going through them. But let's just use, for example, the real estate market. Our real estate market has consistently, over the last 3 or 4 decades, had investment from out of province. It's been a consistent part of our real estate market. And so now, if we suddenly cut that off, or and essentially we're hearing this would not force, but people from Alberta and outside of the province are really saying, why would I want to invest my money in your community if I'm going to be hit with such a punitive tax? And so essentially it will stop investment in our community because a lot of people will purchase a unit in our community, say 3-4 years advance of their retirement, but they'll come here and they'll spend money in the summers frequenting local businesses and spending money in our economy. We also know that there are a number of development projects taking place in our community where out of province where buyers will purchase units. And as a result of that, it allows the projects to get financing to then be constructed. And we know that construction and development employs a lot of people in our community. There's 2 examples right there. So tourism and the development community itself, in terms of all of the jobs it creates, they could really be hit hard if this tax does in fact go ahead. And so I appreciate that we want to house people, but what will we have accomplished if we get a bunch of people housed and then they lose their jobs?
That all makes a lot of sense, but the intent of this is to try to cool the real estate market, I take it, to some extent, and at the same time leave more homes for people who are growing up and living in Kelowna. I know people have seen the price of a house get to the point where they can't imagine their kids buying a house. Yeah. And young people saying, at the wages I make, I can never buy a house. Yeah. So I can see how people in that demographic might say, hey, we do need to cool down this process where people would just come in here and buy a house that they use a few months out of the year.
Sure.
Is there not a point there?
There certainly is. And again, nobody is disputing the fact we need to create more housing for low and middle income earners. And so we will work with the development community, with the province, to do that. But what I think we would like to see happen, and I have yet to have anyone say they are opposed to this option, is let's put in a true speculation tax. And what I mean by that is let's start taxing or punishing, if you will, the people who are purchasing homes and in a year or less than a year, 2 years, flipping it once they see their equity built. And I've heard nobody say that that's a bad idea. And so when speculation tax is mentioned, a lot of people thought what we would see is exactly that, is let's prevent people from purchasing a home, particularly pre-sale condo buildings. So what we often see when a new development project comes to the market, particularly high-rise condo buildings, is investors will come in, purchase multiple units, and before the project is even built, equity is built up, and then they will sell those units as soon as the project is completed. And we would like to put a stop to that because we would like to see our local buyers have access to the project when the prices are lower, as
Right.
opposed to speculators who are just wanting to see the equity and then pull their equity out. So
Right.
what we would like to see as one of the alternatives, potentially, is a true speculation or flipping tax, as opposed to implementing what is currently being proposed on families who have had properties here for generations, who come here to spend money. The other thing I want to point out is we have a really good symbiotic, I guess, relationship with out-of-province owners who, when they're not here, rent their units out to students in the during the school year, and then they'll utilize the unit themselves during the summer. So, but what we don't know under this current speculation tax that's being proposed is a 9-month or 10-month tenancy to a student considered a long-term rental agreement, which would make you exempt then from this tax? We don't know that.
Do you have a sense that the points you've made can be put to Victoria? Are they listening? Are they interested in the input that Kelowna and West Kelowna might have?
I hope so. I sure as heck hope so.
There's no early indication that they're listening or that they're inviting your input?
Well, I've already had the opportunity to speak to Andrew Weaver of the Green Party, and I have begun the process of contacting Premier Horgan, because I do plan on behalf of council and our local residents, as well as the people who have invested their money in our community from outside of the province. I plan on taking their voice to the Premier to say, well-intentioned, but I think there's other ways we can accomplish what you want to see happen here than this speculation tax as proposed, which we think will put people out of work, will have a detrimental impact, and will have people turn their back on Kelowna and go elsewhere, either in the province or elsewhere in Canada, and we don't want that. And one other point I want to raise as well, Kent, is that a lot of these properties, and believe me, I'm not here to, and it'll be characterized, I'm sure, as Mayor has bleeding heart for rich people. But I want to point out that a lot of the product or homes that are owned by people from outside the province are high-end homes, which wouldn't be adding to the affordable housing mix even if this tax was implemented, because you're not going to have a $4 million home on the lake that sits vacant part of the year rented out, because nobody's going to be able to afford that rent if the point is to try and push them to rent it.
Right.
Or if the market cools and whoever owns that $4 million home on the lake says, yeah, you know what, I'm going to sell, I don't want to pay this tax anymore. It's not like that $4 million house is going to drop to an affordable rate that a low to middle income earner is going to be able to purchase it. So
it is part of the same sort of continuum, but it's pretty distant from your middle to low income.
It is. It is.
So best of luck to you in your communications with the provincial government on this. We'll be following it.
Thank you very much.
Mayor Colin Basran, the City of Kelowna. You're watching Kelowna Now.